this as brief as we can. I know you've got things going on. First of all, let me do a little better job of explaining this sign. Several of you have been under the impression that we can finance when we're within 2.4 million. That is incorrect. What this is, it's a temperature gauge charting when we get to 2.4 million, then we're within $1 million, then we can finance. So just think of it as a thermometer temperature gauge. The more money we collect, it builds. It goes up to 2 million, 2.4, 3. The goal is 3.4 million. Some of you have been asking, why does it say that when we get within 2.4 million, we can finance? That's not what it's saying. When we collect 200 or 2,400,000, then we can finance. So this is going to go back outside and be displayed as people come into the facility. Any questions about this? Yes?
Brian, I thought when we had our building committee that we would be able to seek financing at 1 million.
Yes. Yes.
Well, what you're saying is we have to have 2.4 million before we can seek financing?
Yes, $1 million left. $1 million to the goal of 3.4 million. We can finance $1 million is what we can do.
Because when I went to the banks, I talked 1 to 2 because that was my understanding.
Yeah, I think what we've talked about since then is that the district and conference would be uncomfortable with anything over $1 million. And that might be where that's coming, which is why that sign says 2.4 million. Once we get to that, so we could possibly finance 2 million, but let me speak to that why I don't think we can. But the conference itself, I don't think would be very comfortable with anything over $1 million.
Okay, so I wasn't aware that it come from the conference.
Yeah, I think that, so when you did your legwork, you were asking for 1 million to 2 million?
Right.
So your question was, if we're at 1.4 million, we should be able to finance. Was that your thinking? Okay. That's not impossible, but it's unlikely. And I'll explain why. I'll go a little further. Thank you. That leads me to the next point. What we're experiencing right now is this. We are struggling in a mighty way to finance our budget. Matter of fact, we're $17,000 behind last year's giving at this time. That represents a very large amount of money meant for salaries, programming, ministry. We have been very careful to watch the budget, so we're only operating in the red by $1,000 or $2,000 through July. That's because we've been very hawkish about the budget. The difficulty is, because we are operating in the red, and this goes to the question that Pat has, the conference will not allow us to build, will not allow us to finance, as long as we operate in the red. So we won't even be considered for a loan. We won't be considered for a building program. We have to make changes to get back to the black. So having said that, conference has been very upfront with $1 million, yes. Anything beyond that, don't know. Now, if we can give tremendously in our budget, then we could go beyond the $1 million financing. But right now, we cannot even pay off a mortgage. We could not put it into the budget. So, again, we've got lots of time to work on this issue, but we've turned the corner. And what I think has happened in part is that some folks who used to give to the budget are either splitting their tithing and giving to budget and building fund. I think others are giving to the building fund and not to the budget where they might have been before. And we've lost some folks as well. And our giving has really shrunk. And we've not experienced this in our giving in the last 10 years. We've always actually given more in every successive year in the last 10 years. So we didn't see this coming per se, but it also makes sense that some might be more interested in giving to the building fund than to the budget. So having said that, I need us to think about this process, that if we continue to operate in the red, we're going to have to cut staff, going to have to cut programming, might have to cut materials until we can get back to the black. But because we're so far behind in giving, we really need to consider the ministry that's taking place now. So that's the first thing that I need you to be aware of. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand that? So we're in the red. If we continue in the red, no loan, no building project, and of course we've got plenty of time to turn that around, but that's necessary. Another couple things. Let me just say with the Encounter, which is the three churches, Duff Street, Temple, Hammond, that this is an idea that has come because there's so much disunity, so much fighting between churches, so much turf war. But in this case, we have a special relationship with the pastors and with those churches. We are operating single and separate, but also together. So we do some things separate. We do our own budget, we do our own giving, we do our own programming. We also do some programming together. We do not pay for expenses at Temple or Hammond. Hammond and Temple are independent and pay for their own expenses. There's been some question about that. I'm here to tell you personally, we are not funding the ministry of any other church besides Duff Street Church. You've heard it from the horse's mouth. Now that does not mean that occasionally, because of cash flow problems, we've only done this one time, we had to pay for a computer to be fixed at Hammond, and as soon as their bank accounts were changed because they had a problem with changing accounts from the last pastor to the new pastor, we paid for their computer, they paid us back. That's as far as that has gone. We did that because it was a great necessity for them. We knew they would pay us back. So that's the only instance that I'm aware of where money's changed hands in that direction. It's not what we intend to do. It was an emergency. They needed that now. The banks were slow. The staffing was slow to be able to pull all this off, so we did a little favor for them. Encounter really is about us making a difference in our communities together. It is simply a strategy of being United Methodists, not just in name, but in action. It's a strategy to work together, to facilitate together, to pool our resources when we can as far as personnel, and to make a difference in our communities. It's about being the church that God meant us to be. We've talked for years about why churches aren't merging, why we can't get people together. Hey, in this case, these three churches are working marvelously together. And it really should be talked about more and celebrated, and it's a fantastic thing. And the camaraderie amongst the pastors and staff is incredible. We meet weekly for hours at a time to strategize and plan for ministry. We've bonded. We think we're growing together. Questions afterwards, Jerry. We're bonding together. We're doing things together, and we're really wanting to expand our ministry, doing more kinds of things together. So just so you know that that's what the Encounter means. By the way, the bishop has given 100% support to the philosophy and the idea of Encounter Ministries. She is aware of what we're doing. She understands that we're a little bit different, that there's really no definition for us in the Book of Discipline, but she is working with us and very supportive of our endeavors. Okay, back to some other financial things. The church van is not being used enough. And the church council has given us a 4-month deadline. If the church van is not used on a more regular basis for bringing folks to church and for driving to activities, it will be sold in January. We kind of went out on a limb a few years ago to try to make this work, but it's just kind of setting more than it is being used. And the church council has set the deadline. Between now and the end of the year, if we can get folks perhaps picked up for church, we've got drivers. We've had people that were interested, but then kind of didn't become interested anymore. We've got all kinds of activities, but people are driving separately. We don't have a youth group, which is an issue. If we did, I'm certain that we could use it, but we're not. And because we're not, we may end up selling the van. Ideas for use and your cooperation would be greatly appreciated. Let us know if you'd like to use it for one of your groups. All we ask is that you pay the gas. Sounds like an advertisement. Otherwise, it's at your disposal. Next thing, the insurance and the flooding issue. As you can see, were still not repaired. We have been around and around and around with insurance companies, our own insurance company. We have identified that the problem was created by Dominion 4 years ago when Dominion, five years ago, when Dominion cut our underground downspout pipe for a gas line and didn't put it back together. So for the last 4 years, we have been backing up, and our church has been flooding. We've actually got digital proof. Someone actually took a picture as they were working, and when we opened it back up a few months ago, took another picture. Indeed, that gas line went right through, and the downspout pipe was never reconnected. So all this time, the water is backed up. The first time insurance covered that, it did not cover any subsequent damages. We have paid out something like $20,000 or $30,000 overall in damages that have come out of our pocket, and we are trying very hard to recoup that through Dominion. Now, where that goes is anybody's guess. We think we've got clear evidence of negligence. Hopefully, they'll see it that way, and they'll reimburse us, and our insurance company, maybe they'll be reimbursed too. What I'm concerned about was the tremendous amount of money that we paid out that really wasn't our fault in the first place. Having said that, we could use the money because the parsonage is needing some serious attention. With about every rain, we're getting water in the basement. And we've already contracted with a basement company to fix that problem to the tune of about $8,000 or $9,000, maybe 10. Can't remember exactly, 10,000. And the parsonage also needs a new roof. When I moved here 10 years ago, I was told by the trustee chair then that the roof was 5 years past due to be replaced. So we've gotten a lot of mileage out of that roof. That'll probably cost us another 10 easy, maybe beyond that. So it would be a real blessing if we're able to recoup that money from the flooding. As soon as we know that we've got money coming in, we're going to repair the wainscoting of this last flood. The water got behind it and molded it again, and they had to take out more drywall. The drywall for the project is right up here leaning against the wall. We've already paid for it, I believe, and just needs to be installed. So that's where that is. My concern, folks, really is this, and I'll try to let us go here in a second. We are showing real struggle in taking care of the facilities that we have. And yet we want to build a church. So that's on all of us. If we can't take care of what we have, why should we build a $3.4 million church? Now, I believe that we need something. And what we may end up with could be $1 million or $6 million. I don't know. I think that it would be nice to have our gym back. But if we're not going to keep it up, if we're not going to take care of our facilities, this has been an ongoing problem. I noticed it 10 years ago when I drove through the community. We're having trouble taking care of what we have. And we need to really do that and show that we can take care of a new facility. So you're going to be hearing a little bit more about that from me over time. I think we should continue with our funding. However, if we cannot fund our budget, everything else quits. Because eventually the conference will say, no go. So at this point, $1 million is the maximum that we can think about at this point in time, given our current situation with giving. But if we're not out of the red, that won't even happen. So that's kind of where we are with the facilities. 2 more comments. Being on vacation this week, please be aware that you can call Pastor Mary Beth for any pastoral needs. I'll actually be gone for 2 weeks. My cell phone literally got fried 2 days ago, and I don't have a new one yet. But if you really, really, really need me, call Mary Beth. And if you really, 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 really need me, call Mary Beth, and she'll call my wife, and then she'll call me. We'll be together for part of the vacation. I'll be at the farm for the other part. We don't have cell service at the farm, so that's just kind of what we deal with there. All right, I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions, and maybe we can bring some answers to the forefront. If anybody needs to step out, now would be the time to do that. Go right ahead and go. Feel free. We won't worry about that. And yes, sir, first question.
I've had a number of people ask about Pat Webster and her salary, and if we can't pay our own bills, why are we paying Pat?
Okay,
Would
good.
you like to explain
Yes,
that?
yes. Did you all hear that? Some folks have asked why Pat Webster is being paid a certain salary, and if we can't pay our own bills, how can we afford to pay an extra staff person? Very good question. Last year, the General Board of Pensions had a surplus in pension money. West Virginia Annual Conference actually submitted a request with the General Board of Pensions to give the whole conference a pension holiday so that not a single lay or clergy person is paid. The church doesn't have to pay their pension because the surplus has been so great that the conference is paying the pension, but the pension money that's in our budget is supposed to then go to a concrete ministry idea. So that money is not costing our church. It's already in the budget as pension money. Because our investors at the General Board have done so well the last year, there's this great surplus. We don't have to have the churches billed for pension this year, but we have to put that money for pension to use by mandate of the bishop.
Or we lose it.
Actually, we have no choice. The bishop said you must do something, and you must write it down, and you must share it with me. Yeah, otherwise, it's not used. No, can't use it for anything else besides a concrete ministry idea, a way to bring in more people, a way to get more people involved in the church. So the three pastors of Encounter wrote a job description for a person that would help get more volunteers and train them and resource them and keep them accountable. Now, having said that, we're in a transition period. Pat has a main job at the school system that is now turned into a permanent sub position for the rest of the entire school year, it appears. So as of last week, Pat has resigned from the Director of Volunteer Ministries position to be able to fulfill her duties at the school level, which means that we are now today advertising that we need to fill that position. And we will accept resumes, references anytime in the next few weeks. So if you're interested or you know someone that is, there'll be an interview process. The person that we feel is the best candidate will be chosen and be put back into that staff position.
But it only goes until the end of the year.
Yes.
Then next year we have to address what?
Yes, the pension money is just for this year. Matter of fact, the pension money was something like $15,000 or $16,000. So what we did is we funded Pat's position for 2 years at 20 hours a week. So the money is already there for the next 2 years of that position. Beginning January 1st, unless we have another surplus, the church then has to begin paying that pension money effective next year. Good. Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
In the bulletin a week or two ago, there was the budget numbers, and there was an expense in the building fund for about $3,000. I was wondering what that expense was for.
Yes, great question. Michelle, remind me what the expense was for the $3,000 in the building fund. Was that for the golf tournaments and the car show?
The golf tournament. That was all golf tournament money. We didn't have to pay Bell Meadows. That money was raised, and what we paid out, we still made well over $5,000 after that payout was made.
Yes, so the golf tournament needed some money up front, and that brings up a very good point. Please note that we cannot use building fund money for anything except building or fundraising towards the building. So that's a very valid question, because you all need to know when you see an expense what it goes for. So we cannot take any monies and use them for anything else. Can't pay salaries, can't pay utilities. If you give to the building fund, it has to remain under that umbrella of building fund. Thank you for asking. Yes, real quick, Jerry.
Okay, I'm going to put it to you straight.
Yes.
You know this, Brian? I'm going to put it to the church straight out. You have somebody back here that's been wanting to do a DJ ministry for over 3 or 4 years now. I think the way the Bible's been telling me, now's the time for me, because I feel that not only would I be raising money for the building fund, but I'll also be raising money for the general fund of this church.
Yep.
Why can't you use someone like myself to do exactly that? And certain things that we can do in this church, ideas I've thrown out over the years, I don't feel that my ideas have even been looked at. I think it's time to take another look at some of the ideas I've had and try to raise some money for this church. And you said something about a youth program. How about having something here for the youth that I can handle, that maybe can bring in some new people into the church? That's my idea. I'm throwing it out. Take what you want.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. Other questions? Yes, both Pat and then Roberta.
Oh, okay. Of course, the building fund is a real hard part for me, and in my heart on that. Are we going to go ahead with the campaign part of it as the brochures and the outreach with that?
Yes.
Are we going to continue with that?
Yes, great question. Here's what our next step is. Our next step is to reach beyond our congregation, which we really haven't done very well yet. So there are brochures at the printers right now. They should be here soon. And then those big packets and brochures will go out in a mailing to all former members, friends of Duff Street, corporations, anybody we can think of. We're getting how many packets? Do you remember offhand? Brochure-wise?
Not offhand, but we have everything in order. I mean, we're putting the final touches on everything. We've already contracted with Morgantown Printing and Binding to do all of our work. So everything should be done, I'm guessing, after everything is finally approved, within the next month. So we'll have a number of packets. I would say probably 500.
Yes.
Because obviously the more you order, the less the price is, and it's really staggering when you see what it costs to have 100. It might be 3,000, but yet for 500, it's 3,500. So we've got enough material to last us for several years.
Yes.
And it will be in our hands probably in a month once everything is. I'm going to work on that again tonight. They've sent me rough drafts.
So the next,
it's almost finished, and yes, we're going
that's
to.
the next step.
Well, I know just with working with the car show and the golf tournament, those type of things, when we're out in the community is very supportive. They're really wanting to see this be successful. And all the feedback that I've gotten from everyone that I've dealt with as far as the fundraising part of it is as far as the church, our role in fundraising. I don't know what that necessarily equates to dollars and cents, but I know that it is something that is very, very, very positive, and people are very encouraged and supportive.
Yes.
Now, whether that turns into dollars and cents, I don't know, but I know that it's something that in the hearts of many, many people, they're wanting this to be a success.
Yes. Very well said. Yes.
I'm on the church council, so I kind of know this, but I think maybe people, what is about the move to Temple? About, I know they have to fix up that building, so has that bumped back? Maybe you could address that.
Good question. At this point in time, if we were on schedule, we were supposed to tear down the old education wing in the spring. But we're nowhere close to doing that at this point in time. We need to figure out how that building that Temple received can be refurbished at an affordable cost, and that's what's really holding us up. We could help out with work teams and whatnot, but there's some serious work, plaster, air conditioning, and heating. Probably looking, Dustin, at how many thousands do you think? Any idea? We think that the structure is sound. We've looked at it and had people look at it from a structural standpoint, but here's the thing. What I've said to the trustees is that there still needs to be some sort of ministry presence here, and the only way to do that is to turn some room in this facility into office space, and we're not anywhere where we can seem to get that going. So until that happens, we wouldn't even begin to think about tearing down that facility. Eventually, we'd like to put all the office under one roof, and Temple has the perfect setup, but that's going to take time and money. So we're not really anywhere closer to doing anything next on our agenda other than advertising outside the community. Thank you for that. That's backed us up considerably.
How long is the fire marshal going to go along with that?
Okay, I'll ask that again.
How long is the fire marshal going to go along with our building staying up?
If memory serves correct, and this has been a while now that we talked about this with the fire marshal, I think as long as there are no children's activities upstairs, the fire marshal has given us a very large pass. So adults can continue to inhabit the lower floor. The problem we're having, though, is handicap accessibility. It's just not there. And to be quite frank, it is a fire hazard because there is no second exit.
Gotta be able to go out a window.
Yeah, you'd have to go out a window. And right now, that's the only window that doesn't have plexiglass is my office window. And if my door's locked, it might not be very easy to get out of. I mean, you could break a window, that's true. But we have not made it easy enough for anyone to really, especially with physical needs, to get out of the facility. Yep. Now, while the fire marshal's given us leeway, the right thing to do, church, is to make it so it's safe. And we haven't done that. So thanks for that question. Yes.
Can we ask the congregation for ideas for people to send these brochures when we have them done?
Sure.
If they know
Yes.
of anyone or can think of anyone.
Great point. Katie said, can we ask folks in the church to think of people to send the brochures to? Absolutely. If you have a friend that's been had a good persuasion towards Duff Street, interested in our ministries, might have some resources to give, we'd be happy with you taking a brochure and handing it to someone and saying, hey, I'd like you to look at this. That's a great idea.
UHC might be one because they
Oh.
imagine talking about giving the community.
Wow. So UHC needs to be contacted with the material as well.
Well,
Remember that.
What we've done is
Write that down.
we have assembled some very large, very high-end packages. But there's a specific number of those to go to specific people, obviously. And then there's going to be a trifold.
Right.
And we're going to have a lot of those. So when people go door to door, they can hand them one.
Yes.
They can hand, we're going to have thousands of those printed. So everybody will get them, and put them in the doors, put them in the or in mail, whatever. But,
Excellent point.
yeah, they're and then if the more, yes, and then they can contact us if they need even more information.
Excellent. Yes, Jim?
Can we go back to the very first beginning? You had the chart.
Yes.
Of that money that's pledged, or that money that's represented on there with the thermometer,
Yes.
how much of that money is pledged money? Not actual money in hand, but pledged money.
Bob, can you answer that question? Or Michelle?
No, that does include, it includes.
Yes, it does.
one-time gifts, all accounts being liquidated and pledge money.
Right.
Pledge money is roughly a couple $100,000 of that.
So of that thermometer right now, we do not have the total $2,000 or $200,000 that's pledged money.
No, it is included in that.
It's included in there, but
Yes.
we don't have it.
Right.
We don't have that money. It's
Right.
been pledged over time.
Yes, I mean, we would
So
have...
really, that number of 600 plus thousand does not really represent money that we actually have.
What it does say is, it says 674, etc. Total assets, including pledges. You're right that $200,000 or some part of that, a large part of that, has not been received.
Okay.
Some people have pledged, but no. And while you brought that up, Jim, this is another important point. Let's say that the insurance does not, or we do not recoup our money from Dominion. The monies that we would have to use to fix the parsonage would come out of the total assets money that has not been earmarked to building fund. The total assets means we drain every single savings account we have. We've got at least 4 different saving accounts, 3 different accounts at the United Methodist Foundation. So if we take money to build a new roof, this number comes down. It's not money that's been put aside for building fund. It's all of our accounts plus pledges towards building fund. So that's important to know. This number can go up or down depending, because that's not all pledge money. And yes, you're right, we don't have the pledge money in hand to a large extent, 95%.
But when we go for financing, they take those pledges
Yes.
into account, and it actually counts as cash in hand on paper.
Yes. Yes. Now, the $1 to $2 million, there's some discrepancies between a couple of committees and pastor on that. We need to verify. But I do believe that the conference will not fund it if it's more than $1 million, unless we're doing like gangbusters. Like we get large estates for millions, then it's a different story.
So we really need to be aware that pledge money is, if someone, for example, myself, has pledged money over 5, 10 years, all of a sudden, next year I die, that money's not going to be done to the church.
Yes, don't die, but you're right. You're right, Jim. That's a very good point. Yes.
Are there any way we can add on to the, after y'all have your office right here at the Outback Roof?
Yeah, we visited 3 or 4 years ago, adding on to the current office complex, and wow, we went all over that and ended up in a whole full-blown building campaign. All that's been considered. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be revisited, but this whole journey started out because of the inability to have handicap accessibility. Other questions? I know it's 1:15. I'm sorry to leave you this long, but I think this has been very helpful. Anything else? All right. Yeah, one more?
I just would like to thank Pat. I'd like to thank Pat. She's worked tirelessly. She has brought monies from places that we never even dreamed possible, and I think she has been invaluable.
Yes.
And I think we owe her a
Yes, we
huge
do.
debt.
As a matter of fact, Pat and her team has done so well that they've eclipsed the amount of money to be brought in this year. And I'll tell you, the support that she has received and the work that she has done has been phenomenal. So I definitely second that.
It's not what I've done. It's been what everyone else has done, truly. Everything that we have tackled, and I've said from the very beginning, it's in God's hands. He will make of us what he wishes. Every project we've undertaken, people have stepped up, they've lifted it up. It's not been my hands that have done it. It's been the hands of everybody here, and they reached out beyond. Every project we've done has superseded the goal that we set.
Yes.
And it's just, it's because, the building fund is just me. I mean, I just and everything in my heart want this to be a reality. But it's not what I've done. It's been, I look at people and I say, will you help? And they have. And they've moved and they've done it. So it's not by any means my efforts. It's, because everybody has picked it up and gone with it. I mean, Dustin won the idea of a car show, of a car wash, and $668 on a car wash. Now, who would have ever envisioned that we would have that type of thing? We did the car show, and I say we, I was there for the hot dogs, but, Philip Green and Don Johnson and Don Phillips, I'm sorry. Where they had
Don Johnson. It's Miami Vice.
But everybody stepped up and they did it. And it's not, we
Yes.
were praying to break even, and we ended up with like $1,200.
It's amazing.
We had a group come forward. My son knew a friend and mentioned it, and they gave us a check for $500 to pay for all the trophies. So it's not mine. It's just that everybody has stepped up for that. We're over $17,000 that we raised.
Wow. Yes. Susan, what time do you need the sanctuary for practice? Now? Now? Okay. All right, we're done. Thank you all. God bless you.